Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is January 18th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this is going to wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays. My throat's a little scratchy today. I'm having some troubles. If I sound like Barry White today, I feel like him. So anyway, I don't feel terrible. I just got this scratchy throat. So hopefully this will I'll have a couple of days to get over it before next week. But anyway, um, we'll go over the trades. This was a difficult day. Um, People struggle these days because you're constantly flip flopping. But the one thing I want you to see um, from here to here, we're making higher highs and higher lows. So that's a downtrend no matter how you look at it. So there is a downtrend here. This is a downward bias. But also notice how you're above the EMA, below, above, below, above, below, above, below, above, below, above, and then we kind of trended up from there. That's more of an uptrend right there. So when you're flipping back and forth, that's a range. And so so you could trade this trend both directions, just simply because of the fact that it's steadily back and forth above and below the EMA. It has range-like tendencies. You can see that we get stuck in these areas. And that's where you got to be really careful. When it starts to go sideways, you're better off just to stay out, or you got to try to figure out what the price direction is and go from there. So if you're just coming off the lows, where are we probably headed to the highs? And if we're just coming off the highs, where are we probably headed to the lows? And so that's what you got to use to help you out there. We did get a couple of closes outside here, and then we overshot down here, two legs up, and then another leg down, and I think it's a little more than a measured leg, but we'll measure it just to see how it worked out. And then there's your measured leg down. We didn't quite get there, but this was the support level, this line right down through here. So I went ahead and drew the lows, the low and the high and the midline, and you can see there's, they're perfectly, once we went higher, maybe you measure this one and look for that measured move to give you a target. But I would also measure this and look for a measured move from there. And that puts you up there in that same, back up here near these highs anyway. So the more accurate one was actually using the, and you can see that midline through there where we're kind of working both sides of that line. It acted as resistance much more than it acted as support, although there is some support early on. It's mostly resistance in the afternoon until we pushed through here, and then when it came back, it went right back through it again. Of course, that's after 2 o'clock. So yeah, if you struggled, somebody sent me their email and they had a big loss in here. You're better off just to stay out of that. I marked one long in there simply because you had your close outside this trend line up here and you had two legs down and these two overshoots as well. So prices were probably going to go higher from here. And you did have room to get out back before this midline and back before that high. So I marked one long in there. But again, just like right in here, you can get whipsawed too easy. Same thing here. Those are really the two worst. Here's another one right in here. You can get whipsawed. Kind of the same thing as you're kind of in no man's land there. It didn't really get that early on. We're steadily making lower highs and lower lows down through here. And even though that looks like a range, even when we came back, we made lower highs. This high is lower than that one. This high is lower than that one. And when you're going down, you're getting lower lows the whole way. So it's a downtrend. But again, you can play it both ways because there's lots of sideways action there. You just got to be careful in this tight. When it gets in the middle and this tight stuff, or it gets real tight like this with lots of overlapping bars, just step aside. Most of the times you'll be better off. Again, I've marked a couple of trades here that I will talk about, but for the most part, you're better off just to step aside and just let it go. It may take off just like this without you, but you'd rather it take off like this without you than to get short 2 or 3 times here and lose every time and then watch it go straight up. So the thing I always try to tell people is is it just because a move takes off doesn't mean there was a good entry there. And sometimes you have to watch a move like that right there take off without you, without entering. If you if you did the right thing and followed the rules, you still made the right, you traded it properly. Because what'll happen is next time you'll see something that looks similar and you'll try to chase it and it won't go anywhere and it'll back up on you and stop you out and or turn and rocket in the other direction. So sometimes you just have to watch a trade go without you, and that's part of trading. So don't let that don't let that get to you. That's part of it. And again, sometimes the best trade is no trade because you just can't. When it starts going both ways multiple times here, really what you have is a little trading range. You had a failed break out the bottom, failed break out the top, and then a failed second entry short, and off it went. It just took a little buying to finally push it on through there. So let's talk about the trades. We'll wrap up the week. You had to be patient this morning. Notice that it looked like a trading range early on. I mean, if you move this down, you can see there's a clear low across there, and this looked like a failed. So it looked like a trading range early on. So I really traded it more of a trading range early on, or I was looking at more of a trading range early on than I was later in the day. Um, but notice what we did. We had two legs down, and then you had to move up, and then you got two legs down again, but you got a little trend line working. You get a close outside, you get a move to a new low, and there's a little failed break lower there and a nice bullish bar. Of course, you're almost always better off to wait on the higher low because sometimes you'll get in too early doing this. I marked it. We're a little ways away from the EMA. It is a failed break lower, nice bullish bar. But if you want to be aggressive, go for it. But a lot of times you're going to get burned. Here's your final high or low, and you can see that's a much nicer entry. And if you enter there, you get to ride this one all the way back almost to the top, at least back to the top of the trend channel. And that's your higher or low. Basically, that's a double bottom, but this is still a higher low. You didn't make a lower low again. And notice how it looked like it would have been a good place to buy here, but it kept going lower. Same thing off the highs. You're better off. I mean, this looks like a great short, but you got a trend line working up there, so you're better off to wait on that lower high, which comes right here, and then you can ride it all the way down. Real simple. So just remember that because people send me that all the time, and they try to pick these bottoms or they try to pick these tops, and they just keep getting burned. And normally in a downtrend, you wouldn't try to pick bottoms at all. But because it's going back and forth above and below the EMA, it's a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. And you can trade it both ways. So you get your higher low here, you enter there, and you can ride this all the way up. And I'd probably exit right here with this big bearish bar that broke above the trend line. Early on I had it a little higher. I moved it a little higher. You're not sure if that's the top of the trend line, and maybe it is more like this because I had it like this at one time. But you bounced too early here, but maybe that's because there's so many people looking at it as a range. But it fits either way. You still get your overshoot on the top and then two legs down, and you overshoot it both times on the low side as well. But if you play it right here, then you got a double bottom without reaching that low, and that was the only thing I didn't like about that. So I tightened it a little bit. But I didn't like this short because you just got a break, and you're probably, even though it would have worked, you don't know that it's going to go that far, and it could come back up as it tries for a retest and burn you. So by waiting, you get a lower high, a nice smaller bearish bar. Just go short there, and again, you can ride this all the way to the bottom. Any runners would have survived. Although I may not play a runner when it's this much sideways stuff. But if you are playing a runner, you ride this all the way to the bottom. And it does make a lower high right here. It pushes through right through the EMA, pulls back. This is what I'm using as a signal bar just because it's an inside bar. Look how bearish it is. But your stop still has to go above that bar right there because that made the swing high, and that's where your stop has to go. Wouldn't have mattered. It took off anyway. There's a break here, but there's not a very good signal bar. This one's too bullish. This one's too big. You're too close to the lows. So, um, but you get your break of this shorter term little trend channel here. Move to a new low, and look how far away you are from the EMA. That's the only reason I marked that one. There's very high odds that it's coming back to the EMA there, especially with it being an overshoot there. And you know, if this was really back here, which it could have been easily, that makes your overshoot even stronger, because you not only you're overshooting this channel and you're way away from the EMA. It's coming back soon. So if you want to be aggressive, that's the one to take, because you're just so far away from that EMA and it's coming back, and it's probably going to go all the way to the top. So notice what happens. It starts going sideways here and it gives you a little breakout pullback short, but better than that, there's a new high, first entry, pullback, second entry, and that's real bullish looking. So that probably fooled some people. So I like going short there, although you're better off to stay out of this, but that is a little breakout pullback short. You had enough to get out with an extra tick or two, but then it fails to the downside. So, and where should you have been going after you just came off the high and went to the lows and overshot the lows? Where should prices have been going? They should have been going back to the upper side. So that's why I like that long, because once you got the little fake out there and a higher low, and notice I waited on a higher low again and a bullish bar. If you go long there right at the EMA, it shoots right up to the other line, and that's right where you would look for it to go. And you could have considered shorting here, but it's just so neutral. But that one's really neutral too. But you know, it's like a little failed break out of all this congestion. So you could argue for that one to be green too. But we've already had, oops, let me make it green. The reason I'm less likely to even want to play that one aggressively is because we've already had a close outside here and a big leg down, which you could argue there's a couple legs in that leg. So this could be a trap. Although we are a little bit away from the EMA, it's probably going to come back, but it could push higher again before it comes back. So I'm not as crazy about that one. Again, you're probably better off to wait on a lower high, which comes here, but you don't really get a good setup, and then you get that failed second entry long, which that's really not a failure, but we just came off the high. We're probably headed back to the low, and we're probably going to try to make an equal leg like that one, and so that you can treat that like a failed second entry long and go short there. And this one I went back and forth. You could argue for it to be green, but since I'm treating it like a failed second entry long, we don't care as much about the signal bar. The whole idea is to fool people and trap them on the wrong side. So, and you can see how quickly it shot off and bearishly. That's a perfect sign that you got people trapped. Just like right here, people were trying to get long and got trapped and had to get out again. And same thing here. And now you got, and of course you want to measure this leg and look for a measured leg down, and you pretty much got that there. And then of course it overshoots again, good bit away from the EMA. So if you want to be aggressive, you might ride that one back. Again, you're better off to wait on the higher low. But notice how we didn't get many higher lows down here, because every time it got down here, the buyers come in pretty strong and it quickly rockets back up. It's when it gets in this price level that it starts to really go sideways here. And you could treat this like a failed breakout of this level, and you could treat this as a failed breakout of this level. And but we just came off the low, so where are we probably headed? Back to the high. Again, you're waiting on a higher low, which doesn't come till right here. And by that time, you're all the way back up here. You might have considered entering here. It is a reversal type pattern, but and we did just come off the low, so I'm going to leave it green because it's such a big bar. But you might consider that one. You might let it break higher and back up, which it would have backed all the way up to here and then pushed on up there and kind of went sideways from there. But I already talked about this. You're just really going sideways. Prices are wanting to go higher, but there's a lot of resistance. You got the resistance from the trend line, you got the resistance from the range, the midline of the range, and there's just a lot of reasons to just, sit that out. Really, if you pull this down to where it ought to be, it should be maybe right across there, just for this part right here, and then bring this one up to where the lows are. And now you can clearly see that's a little range right there. And so even going long right there, right into that's really dangerous, and going short right into that's dangerous. You really need a failed break lower, and the only one you really got, or a failed break higher, was you had a failed break higher here, which you might have gone short right there if you got enough room, and that one would have worked. And then you got a failed break lower here, but you don't have a very good signal bar, even though it would have worked. And the rest of this is just getting sideways again. But since we've already had a break and 2 legs down now, the odds are we're probably going to get 2 legs up. And that's where I was saying from here. Actually, there's your high. Well, there's your high right there, because this made your lower high. And then that would have been my target right in there. Of course, we ended up pushing up to the very highs here. And that's a failed second entry short and a second entry long. Look at that high, pull back, first entry, and then you turn down again and turn back up. So again, you're probably better off just to stay out of this tight stuff when it gets in the middle, which is what I kind of call no man's land. You're better off to go short off the highs and long off the lows and stay out of the middle. Although, if you're clearly seeing it going from side to side and you just came off the low, you probably got to figure if it's going to fail in any direction, it's probably going to be to the high side. Okay, I had a slight interruption there. Somebody trying to sell me something like usual. But anyway, this was not an easy day for most people, because it's just, you get whipsawed so easily. Just remember that this is still range-like. So the key is to get short off the highs and long off the lows. And if you can do that, you'll be much better off. And just remember, you got to know where prices are headed. So if we just came off the high, you don't want to be getting long up here. You want to be where prices probably going when they come off these highs, back down to these lows. And where are prices going when they come off these lows? Don't be trying to get short off this, because we're probably going back to the highs. And if you just follow it, you can see what it would do. It would work from high to low to high to low to high to low to high to low to high. And it was time for a reversal here, and you got a 2-tier channel working back up. And I just didn't see anything I really liked in here. You might have considered going long on one of these, figuring that we're probably headed back up here. Although we did already have this measured move here, and so that makes me a little bit leery of entering right in here. So that's the reason I didn't mark any of it. But it is off a key entry point, which is, and we did already have a close outside here too, even though it's, kind of questionable. But anyway, if you had a hard time today, remember those rules I just showed you how to trade this, and don't beat yourself up over it, because it was a hard day. And if you're not really experienced with this was a hard day. But we'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm going to wrap it up for this week. Hopefully my throat will be a little better next week. And this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.